They made sure to make their relationship work. Taehyung apologized every day even after Jungkook had forgiven him. He worked on his jealousy and overprotectiveness while Jungkook worked on his trust, both in Taehyung and himself. They were now more open to conveying their feelings, talking about everything and anything just to avoid misunderstandings. Taehyung's parents eventually found out what happened to the two, about Taehyung unintentionally cheating and why Jungkook almost died, and to say that it didn't go prettily was an understatement because it went awful. Taehyung's father laid his hand on Taehyung and everybody became chaotic. It wasn't every day that you'd see someone punch their own son after all. Jungkook stood up for his husband though, saying that the man didn't mean it to happen and that he has already forgiven him. Although it took so much bravery to stand up against Taehyung's father, he still did it because of his love and care for the man. And the others saw that. They saw the genuine love that danced in Jungkook's eyes as he defended Taehyung and the same, or maybe even more, love in Taehyung's as he watched his husband. The talking. After a week, Seok-jin flew back abroad. They sometimes called to either ask how the other was doing or just because Jin wanted to see his niece. They only then discovered about Seok-jin being in a relationship already and how pissed Taehyung was when he found out. His little brother just played him on his hands. Taehyung and Jin got closer as time passed by and they also learned that the younger was actually doing great in his work, which was why he didn't bother going back after he finished his studies. After all of them were sure that their company would fall into Taehyung's hands. Era was now 3 years old and they were all happy. No more big fights, maybe little misunderstandings here and there, but it never took longer than an hour or two before they fixed it. There were still times when Taehyung couldn't stop himself from getting jealous and sometimes, even Jungkook gets jealous, but that was unavoidable. They love each other after all. Jungkook often visited Taehyung in his office with Era when they have free time as well. He also did his coffee every morning again and Taehyung was in pure bliss. He told Jungkook how much he loved his coffee even before he knew that it was him doing it. Their maids were more than happy to watch their beautiful family grow. The house was no longer dark because their love brightened it. It was no longer a simple house but a happy home. The waves of laughter and smiles made them bloom lovely, but their cries and fights made them stronger. Everything was wonderful until one particular night came. It was almost midnight. The three were lying on their bed with Era sleeping in between the couple. Jungkook was almost asleep too. Taehyung was caressing his hair softly and the younger was smiling gently as the hand soothed his calm nerves even more when Taehyung suddenly spoke. "Do you remember our contract?" Jungkook looked at him, confusion written on his face. "What contract?" he asked. "It was silly. The one that I gave you before we got married," Taehyung explained, but Jungkook just furrowed his eyebrows more. "The one with the rules. It also said there that we are only married in papers for 3 years. You're not divorcing me right now, are you?" Jungkook cut him off. He thought it was long forgotten, that the contract was cancelled. Taehyung shrugged. "I mean, we can't deny the fact that our marriage is supposed to end." Jungkook abruptly sat up, frowning at his husband who copied his actions and sat up too. "I'm not divorcing you just because of that." The certainty in his voice made the man smile. Jungkook's confusion doubled when he was pulled into a hug, Taehyung's chin leaning on his head. Their position was kinda awkward since Era was lying between them, but they stayed like that. Jungkook couldn't have fallen asleep in that position if it weren't for their topic. "Our marriage was forced, Jungkook. I don't want to stay in a marriage that was forced by my parents." Jungkook felt his heart fall into his stomach. What do you want to do then? He wanted to smack Taehyung for making him feel like this again. It's been a while since he was this nervous, since he had this heavy feeling in his chest. He thought he would never feel like that again. But here goes Taehyung, making his breath halt again. "Marry me," the man whispered in his ears. Here's the thing. Jungkook has always wanted to hear those words, hear someone he loved asking him that, and then everything would be just so amazing. He always thought that when someone asked him that, there would be fireworks popping inside his chest. There would be tears flooding down his cheeks as he nodded his head vigorously to the point where it would hurt his neck and head. But when he heard Taehyung say that out of the blue, he almost scoffed at him. "We are already married," he stated as a matter of fact. Jungkook looked so confused but at the same time, so done that Taehyung couldn't help but laugh at his face. "Marry me, and this time, let's do it out of love." Jungkook was suddenly frozen against Taehyung's chest. The older watched Jungkook as he bit his quivering lips to stop them from trembling. Jungkook's eyes looked at his and he saw the tears forming in them. "You're not kidding, are you?" Taehyung pulled away to search for something on his side table, and seconds later, he pulled out a small velvety box. The older opened it and a ring with small diamonds in the middle appeared. It was pretty simple, just like Jungkook, and maybe that was why Taehyung chose it among the other fancy rings. The younger let out a gasp, covering his mouth with both of his hands as tears finally fell down his cheeks. "I don't see a life without you anymore, Jungkook. I only want you, and this might sound cheesy or cliché or whatever, but please be mine for real." Jungkook's sobs got louder, which caused Era to wake up. The little girl was shocked to see Jungkook bawling his eyes out, and without thinking, she wrapped her small arms around him. Jungkook was surprised to see his daughter awake, and he was kinda guilty for waking her up just because he couldn't stop himself from making loud noises. "Why are Appa crying?" the little girl asked, her eyes becoming glossy as well as she looked at Jungkook. Jungkook smiled gently as he caressed her hair softly. "Appa's just so happy," he replied. "Happy?" the young girl asked in confusion. "Why would someone cry if they were happy?" "Yes, baby," he trailed off, looking back at Taehyung before stretching his hand in the older's direction. The latter accepted his hand and Jungkook gripped it tightly while nodding his head. "Because Appa's getting his dream wedding, now you're pressuring me." "Oh, shut up and stop ruining the moment." Everything was well prepared, all ready for the special event that was about to take place in a few hours. Everyone was happy, excitedly skipping around and waiting for the right time. Well, everyone except one. Jungkook was inside his room, nervously staring at his reflection in the mirror while fidgeting. He looked beautiful. His mother-in-law was beside him, smiling fondly as she heaved another big sigh. "You're beautiful, Jungkook," she said. "I know you're nervous, but, come on, this is the second time that you'll be marrying. And mind you, to the same man." She laughed. "Yeah, I know. But that doesn't change the fact that this time, it is real. And my mind is in chaos." Jungkook felt his mother-in-law's hand land on his shoulder, which caused him to look at her. "You know, marrying is one thing, but staying in a marriage is another. And you stayed with him even after all the things he had done, after knowing his true colors and accepting them. You were already a real husband to him." Jungkook's genuine smile crept up to the young man's face and he held both of the woman's hands. "I know this might be sudden. My parents aren't here to see me get married, but you're like a real mother to me," he trailed off. He was nervous to ask this of the woman, but Mrs. Kim's smile eased his nerves. like how it always did. Can you please walk me down the aisle? The woman gasped in surprise. At the first wedding, Jungkook got married without anyone walking him down the aisle, and she thought that was because the younger wanted it. But now, he was asking her to be the one to hold his hand while walking to the man whom he will be spending the rest of his life with, to her son. And she was glad. She always imagined how it would feel like to walk her daughter down the aisle, but she never thought that it would be possible because she only had males as children. But Jungkook, he made her dream a reality. She pulled Jungkook into a bone-crushing hug, surprising the younger, but was soon relieved when she nodded her head. "I would happily do so," Mrs. Kim said. For a moment, they forgot that time was ticking. They just settled on the warm embrace. Two men then peeked their heads from behind the door and smiled widely as they witnessed them in a heartwarming hug. "Excuse us, Mrs. Kim, but can we please borrow Jungkook for a moment? We promise it'll be really quick," Jimin spoke, successfully getting their attention. Jungkook looked at his mother-in-law, asking her permission, and he got a nod with a gentle smile. "Of course," the elder replied, letting Jungkook go before walking out of the room. As soon as the elder was gone, Jungkook's friends squealed before engulfing him in a tight hug. "We're so happy for you," they both screamed in unison, and Jungkook let out a laugh of happiness. "Thank you," he said. When they pulled away from the hug, Jimin and Hoseok looked at each other as if contemplating whether or not to say something. Jungkook raised an eyebrow before asking, "What is it?" "Well, since you will be getting married for real to the love of your life, we decided to tell you the truth," Hoseok answered, which left him even more curious. Truth about what? Seconds passed and no one spoke, so he knew it must be something big. "All right. Whatever it is, I won't judge the both of you nor get angry," he assured. "We know that you won't get mad at us, but still, just say it." "Geez," he jokingly said. "Okay, I think this is the biggest wedding gift you'll ever receive." Jimin trailed off and Jungkook just nodded his head, signaling to them that he was waiting for whatever it was. "Do you remember your first night with Sir Taehyung?" Jungkook nodded his head, the memories of that certain night flashing in front of his eyes.